Starting your flare with the hips really high is actually not the way to go, because then gravity is going to do its part and everything is going to come tumbling down and basically you're going to crash. It's just one of many common mistakes that people do when they're learning their flare. That's what this video is all about. So hey,
stay tuned.
What's up guys, and welcome to a new video with your man Coach Sambo, your online b-boy coach. So if you're new to the channel, I welcome thou. And here on Coach Sambo's magical YouTube channel, you can find a lot of breaking tutorials or a lot of breaking related content. So hey, if you feel right at home, don't forget to subscribe. So if you guys are watching this video, that means that you're working on your flare, which is good because people who want to do flare
are hungry people.
People that are basically chasing success.
And that's good.
But it's also telling me that you're kind of new and young in this breaking game. So again, welcome. Now taking your flares very seriously is really going to change the whole game for you. Because as I once said in my flare tutorial, if you didn't check it out yet, make sure you check it out. I basically say that unlocking your flares unlocks the Kid Columbia version of yourself. And that's absolutely true. People that master their flare on another level basically achieve nothing less than physical superiority over most of the human race. And what I mean by that is if you unlock 30 to 40 flares, then you're gonna have an easier time learning other moves such as air flares or any other type of complicated power move variation. So now that you guys know this, it's time to get to work. What are the most common flare mistakes? On number 5, which is very common with a lot of young b-boys and well, more b-boys than b-girls, basically not taking your warm-up seriously. Listen guys, if you enter your training spot and you just take off your coat and your backpack and start throwing flares, then you're not gonna be practicing flares for a very long time because I guarantee you will get injured. Not warming up is an injury hazard. So what happens if you get injured? Well, basically you're not going to be able to train your flare anymore, which will lead to you not evolving your flare or getting your flare to the next level. And in my book, that's kind of a mistake. Take your time to warm up seriously, especially the wrists and the groin. And even if you're not specifically going to train flares, you still got to learn how to warm up. So yeah, I bet 75% of the people watching this video are like,
Hey, actually, I don't really warm up that well.
So yeah, that's why your man Coach Sambo is telling you this. The fourth most common mistake that I see when people are training or learning their flares is people starting out with the hips really high in the beginning of the flare. And then while the legs move forwards during the flare, well basically gravity pulls you back down and says,
Nope, you're not gonna do a very clean flare today.
So how do we fix this problem? Well, it's very simple. You should actually start with your hips very close to the floor. Like the lower you keep your hips in the beginning, the more they can go up as your legs move forwards to the front. And basically what should happen if you have a proper start of your flare, that big circle that you make with your leg, you should actually feel a lift as your legs move forwards, bringing your hips higher up in the air in the front. So if this is a problem that you're actually going through right now, the best thing for you to do is slow everything down, clean up the beginning of the flare, really look at the height and the position of your hips. Try and reprogram yourself to execute it with the right technique. Now moving on to our third most common flare mistake is the second leg or the second kick that just hits the floor. And smash that like button right there if you're actually struggling with this issue. The fix for this is basically reprogramming the technique that you have learned for your flare. What I recommend you doing is doing half a flare. And basically when you reach that point of having your hips and legs forwards, you actually want to sit down, but keep your legs up in the air. The fact that you're sitting down and you're behind is going to make it a lot easier for you to keep your legs up, reinstalling that new technique into your muscle memory to get that second leg up. At that point, if you're practicing this, you want to then slide to the back while keeping your second leg up in the air. So it's okay for the other leg to touch the floor, just as long as you're working on getting that second kick into your muscle memory. And don't worry, I've seen this happen a lot of times. And the faster you apply these methods,
the faster you're gonna see evolution.
You gotta really use your brain and apply the techniques by your man Coach Sambo. Second most common flare mistake is what I call the third hand being too late. So most of the time, this issue is with people that manage to do 3 or 4 flares, but are not happy with the height of the flares. Legs are scraping the floor and there might even be a little bit of cheating with you pushing off with your knee and stuff like that. All basic things that I actually explain in my flare tutorial. However, the third hand being late is the most common reason why this issue actually occurs. So when you start out with your flare and you place your first hand on the floor, continuing on to place your second hand on the floor, a lot of people take too much time before placing that third hand on the floor. So what happens during this slow transition? So basically at that point, we're only standing on one hand. So something is bound to drop, and usually it's the legs. So if your third hand moves a little bit quicker, it might just give you a second point to push off from a lot earlier. Not only helping you get your legs off the floor, but also helping you raise those hips especially in the back, because that's the hardest part. So when training your flare, try and execute it with that third hand at a faster pace. And don't forget, you also want to apply this with the next flare. So that means the second flare and the third flare. Every time you place down your left hand or your right hand, you know, it's different from person to person, right? It's up to you to kind of push the pace on that one. And then the number one most common flare mistake that I picked up as a coach throughout all these years of teaching and, you know, suffering is basically having low hips in the back of your flare. So for this one, we have to understand a little bit more of the technique of the flare. When we start out the flare, we create a very big circle with our legs, creating speed and velocity for our flare. But then when the flare heads onto the back, we usually don't think about the whip or the swing of the leg as our hips and legs are moving to the back of the flare. So try this out. If you, for example, create your circle with your left leg when your flare is going to the front, try swinging your right leg back, helping you create more speed and velocity at that particular point in the flare. This will help you maintain speed and maintain whip that you got from the beginning of the flare, which is basically great news. But I also have some more good news for you if you're working on your flares. And that good news is that you can find a flare masterclass on my website. It includes everything from warm-up to cleaning exercises, variations, and things like how to go from your flare up to 90s and stuff like that. And they have all the exercises that I use for my own students. You could call them
the secrets of the trade,
if you will. Everything's in the masterclass. Definitely check it out. Well, anyways, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a comment. Definitely keep smoking crack. Don't forget I have tons of other videos and tutorials on my YouTube channel. Share them with your friends, share them with your students, share them with your grandmother. It's all good. Because at the end of the day, when you think about it,
it's just all about that B-boy shit.